Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's upload, we'll be talking about a very active pattern that could bring several snowstorms depending on where you live, or very heavy rain if you live in the rainy side of these systems. Very potentially cold in the longer range, and for now very warm. So just a ton of things. A very active March. Started off pretty quiet. We are entering into a very active period. Some rather surprising things, so stay tuned and we'll be talking about that. If you at any point start enjoying these videos, if you're returning, haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so. Consider liking the video if you enjoy the content. That also helps out a lot. Otherwise, without further ado, let's start talking about this stuff. Okay, so first off, what I want to show you that obviously most of the U.S. right now is rather warm, especially across the plains and the Midwest, the Northeast. It's going to get to your locations or that area in just a few days, probably tomorrow, Thursday. Generally a very nice warm pattern. But if you were to look at the 6 to 10 day outlook from the 14th through the 18th, look what happens. We see below average temperatures across much of the United States, really all of them, other than maybe the peninsula of Florida and extreme southeastern Georgia, South Carolina. And look at that, cold air, again, focusing on to Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Now, even if it gets extremely cold, right, there won't be a similar, probably, magnitude of cold that we saw previously, but definitely chilly compared to what we're seeing now. But you can see that precipitation chances stay above average, especially for the eastern United States. Again, this isn't 100% accurate, so this will still provide potentially snow where it's cold enough, or just large storms. And 8 to 14 outlook, even further out through almost the latter half of March, still maintaining that chill and maybe a bit drier, more focused towards the East Coast with the warmer temperatures, or above average precip. So I wanted to show you that because right now we have very warm temperatures. Notice these red flag warnings are indicative of a fire hazard. They're usually put out when the fire conditions are pretty high, right? Conditions for a fire threat, and we have the strong winds, rather dry air, and that could spark some fires up. And they have an advisory right there for Georgia talking about that, and just the actual warnings. And they do have some sort of a fire warning across the county of where Topeka is located. So I'm assuming that means a fire is on the ground somewhere. Probably not too massive, but something to note for. Look at that. Sierra Nevadas will be getting pounded this upcoming next couple of days. We do have storm watches getting issued across Wyoming. Probably some winter weather advisories will be issued into South Dakota, Minnesota, and just hydraulic outlooks for the very heavy rain potential. Look at that. Freeze watches all the way down to the south as well for tonight. So just, a little bit of everything, to be honest. Okay, so let's start off by looking at the European model. So this is a relatively good model. A lot of folks like this model, and I do think it's probably the best model we have. And look, we have system right now that is centered and dropping precipitation across the west, right? This scoots out of the United States from Montana, and doesn't really bring much of snow to the U.S. plains, more of the Canadian prairies. You can see across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and into potentially Ontario as it intensifies quite a bit of heavy snow, especially from such a measly low pressure. So definitely don't get caught off guard by that. But as that moves away, you can see not much to this, the rainy side to this thing. It's mainly just snow, and that's pretty much it. So as that moves away and intensifies, notice we have just a extremely strong conveyor belt of winds. Now that obviously, you can see, it brings in moisture from the Pacific Ocean all the way up into the plains, and we see another low pressure right after that one erupting, a bit stronger. You can see more rain with this one, light rain, but it's there, and more snow. And this is why the watches are already being issued across Wyoming. It's not to do with this first one right here, but with this second one right there. And notice that as this pushes out, the European and many other models are advertising for some pretty heavy snow across the South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota areas in just a few days, really Wednesday into Thursday. So that is something to watch for, but I would say that the confidence is still kind of darn low for this system, being this not far out. And notice that does bring, according to the Euro, quite a bit of snow, really rain for Minneapolis, maybe Duluth, eventually transitioning over to some snow just north of those areas, but where it does fall, it can be pretty heavily. This isn't a big system, but notice that it does drag this cold front, right? And this is where things get interesting. This thing kind of stalls out, could bring flooding rains for a good portion of Tennessee. Oh, sorry, Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and then it sags down towards Tennessee, Kentucky, according to the Euro, which takes it pretty far to the south. And you can see, then we see another low pressure that, while this system's going on, kind of sneaks onto the California coast. And this one combined with that stalled out cold front, and look what happens. We start seeing an eruption of precipitation across the south. At this point, this is Friday, right? So just a few days behind this that second one. We have our third one developing. Look at that. Very, very heavy rain, stalled out for potentially several days across the south, so not good news. And then notice, right, very, very heavy snow into New Mexico, Colorado, right, Arizona potentially, Texas even, the panhandles of Oklahoma as well. This could be bringing very, very heavy amounts of snow. Some models show over 40 to 50 inches for the plains of Colorado. So, yeah, pretty significant system. And notice that it just has a conveyor belt, literally just a straight flow into the system with tons of moisture that converts to the snow on the cold side. And if that wasn't enough, we see a type of clipper system that is rather powerful combined with this low pressure. And look, it starts flirting with these two and develops a full-fledged sort of blizzard across North Dakota, Montana, and this is good news. These areas are snow-starved, especially portions in South Dakota. They've seen maybe 3 to 4 inches this whole year, so yeah, they need that. Notice anywhere elsewhere, quite a bit far to the north, that rain snow line extends into Minneapolis, right? Duluth probably seeing some rain. And obviously further south rain as well. Probably some severe weather, maybe especially down towards the south. But look at that. That system spins away into Canada. Pretty chilly air follows behind that. And look, we still keep seeing these surges of moisture. And any one of these could end up being a snowmaker, which some models show. And you can see that one does bring a bit of light snow here. Maybe even into Texas, according to this Euro. Texans looking at this are probably freaking out. Don't worry. This is probably a bit overdone, but I've been noticing that the models have been trending some pretty chilly air towards your location. Once again, okay, let's take a look at the snowfall. Everybody's wondering, okay, show us the total snowfall according to this model. Look at that. Pretty good amounts, to say the least, especially across the plains and Colorado. Now, the Euro isn't one of the models that shows those ridiculous amounts. It does show some rather high amounts. You can see approaching 30 inches in some locations. But look at that. Where they need it, they definitely get some snow. And again, this could still shift to the north, to the south. This isn't set in stone. And look, we do see some signs further to the south of that snow with those secondary wave of systems further out into the longer range. I did not want to go on that. I wanted to show you the total amount of precipitation. And notice, right, this is how much falls, rain and, just rain, so snow, sleet, whatever it may be, quite a bit across the south. Unfortunately, the areas that have been absolutely drenched these past couple of weeks. But again, not all models show the axis over here. Some show it further to the north, further to the east, west, etc. So there's still some figuring out to do. Let's take a look at the GFS. This model is usually a pretty good model, though it does tend to be kind of scrutinized by the weather community. So here's our first system, right? Mainly snow. That's what the European model showed. And then we see that second system benefiting off that moisture conveyor belt from the south. And look at that, showers erupting, right? Again, advertising for some pretty heavy snow a bit further south than the Euro, kind of affecting more of Duluth potentially. But really, pretty well agreement. And then look, there's that cold front. It stalls out, drags it across Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and potentially into the lower Ohio Valley. And then look, with that little system and a stalled out cold front, we see that emerging low pressure, which again dumps a lot of rain, a lot of snow for even potentially Nebraska, Iowa. You can see that with this model compared to the European. It brings that snow way further out into Iowa and eastern Nebraska. And then there's our little clipper. These two kind of merge together and once again form a pretty nasty system to the north with some reinforcing shots of moisture and snow. And look at that. There's our little secondary systems. Yeah, pretty heavy rain for the south and east here. Could be an onslaught of several days of rain. One of these could turn into more of a snowmaker than what the GFS is showing. So definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on for. And you can see later on in the future, things don't look to quiet down. Continued activity seems to be the trend. Okay, so now I want to show you how much snowfall the GFS model shows. And I'm showing you all these models because it's kind of like each one of them is a different news source, right? In order to get a good scope of what's actually going on, you have to look at a lot of them, not just one. And you could decide for yourself which one you kind of or the pattern, whatever they all create. And look at this. The GFS is one of the models that gets extremely excited about that snow across Colorado. But even further to the north, it does bring some pretty good amounts of snow. And you can see potentially favoring Minneapolis right there, Iowa, a bit further to the south and east. But look at that. Some of those amounts, I said approaching 50, and I wasn't lying. Look at that. Potentially 60 inches. Probably overdone. Right, but it's definitely showing that the snowfall potential is there. I want to see what the Cuchero would do. Oh my god, the Cuchero just shoots that up. Did you see that? Oh, look at that. Triple digits. I mean, probably not going to happen most likely, but that would be some ridiculous snowfall. And that's not even really the mountains. Denver is probably located somewhere in the right there 30-inch range. I don't know. That would be obviously more of a ridiculous scenario. But if you're to take a look at a third model, the Canadian model, look what it shows through 240 hours. Right, not as much to the north. Does show quite a bit more across southeastern Canada and into the plains, like the Great Lakes, Illinois, Indiana. Not that much into the upper plains, but again, pretty excited about some of those amounts. And 30-40 inches seems to be advertised pretty heavily by this model, and stretches that out into Kansas, a bit of Oklahoma and Texas. I could show you what what this Canadian shows in terms of the precip, so like the simulated radar, simulated. Right, notice there's our little system. There's our second one, more precip, more snow. Again, advertises for some lighter amounts, not as much as the GFS or the European. So there's already quite a bit of differences right there. There's our cold front. It stalls out, develops this beast of a low pressure, which at this point all models do, right? And it's just the fact of what they do afterwards. The GFS, for example, stalls it out right here and then brings it further to the north. The European, a bit more hastily, brings it further to the north and brings heavier snow to the northern plains. And the Canadian, you can see what it does is it brings a lot of snow there across the Colorado and into Kansas, a lot of rain as well. And then it does combine it with that clipper system, but that clipper system is much more quicker and attached with a stronger cold air mass, which accelerates it, and they kind of meet across the Great Lakes. You could see right there and into southeastern Canada, rather than across the northern plains. So that's interesting, definitely. You can see that's already a big difference. So you saw the snowfall amounts, how much they varied. And this is the precip. You can see not much at all for the northern plains at this, more across the east, where that storm system kind of gets shoved to the south or to the north and east rather than just going up to the north. Now, if you were to take a look at the GFS version 16, I think this model is, in my opinion, probably as good as a European. Let's take a look at its simulated radar. This is our first system across Canada. There's our second one. You can see delivering quite a bit of rain and snow, and you can see it does bring more, say, for Duluth. So the GFS version 16 is pretty much, at least 100 miles to the south than what the European shows, and that's, less than 50 hours out. So a lot of differences there. And notice that it tracks it out, right? We have that stalled out cold front, mixes with that with that vortice off of the southwest, and it creates a system. Dumps quite a bit of snow across Colorado, but does bring it up to the north in a similar fashion to the European. So kind of a combination of both sleet, ice, and lots of rain to the south, potentially some severe weather. And look, like the other three models, GFS and European, it does show this combination of this clipper and that system, and does develop a pretty big system across the northern plains, kind of dropping some blizzard conditions and light to moderate snow. And you can see it speeds it out of there. But then, like the other models show, look at that. We have an onslaught more further to the south and east. And you can see that could potentially spawn some snow further to the south with heavy rain more across the Kentucky, Tennessee area. And then look, potentially a very large system of snow, across Missouri, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And then more rain. So in terms of total precipitation, you can see centering a bit further to the south. So definitely not good news for the folks that have been absolutely drenched there. Not that much over here. Again, so kind of more of that Canadian, a mindset with that in terms of models. It's leaning towards that Canadian model. But look, it shows a lot of snow here with that first system, and the National Weather Service doesn't really agree with that. So that's already kind of concerning. Look at that. Pretty good amounts for Colorado. Not as much as the GFS showed, but still decent amounts. And then look at this, right? A lot of snow to the south and east. of the northern plains, not necessarily, or this is the northern plains, but not necessarily North Dakota or southern Canada. It's quite a bit further to the south, and then potentially more snow. But this only goes out to 240, so we can't even look at that. 240 hours, I should mention. So those are all the models, right? And this is what the National Weather Service thinks will fall in terms of snowfall for the next 72 hours, right? Notice a lot of snow across the Sierra Nevadas, but look, in terms of the northern plains, you saw what the European NGFS showed. They showed some, almost double-digit amounts here. While this is still a bit out, and I do think that the National Weather Service will continue to increase this, it's definitely quite a bit lower, indicating that some lower confidence is occurring. They're only showing 2 to 3 inches for just north of Duluth, right? 3 to 4, quite a bit more, up to 8, maybe even double digits across Wyoming, which is why they have those winter storm watches. But I do think that there could be some half foot plus, maybe even approaching double digits in certain areas across this swath, except the National Weather Service still has to kind of update that. And they will have it as they update this every hour, right? And I do want to show you something also, is all these ensembles. So we have these things called GFS ensembles. It's kind of the GFS family. And I want to focus on the Midwest, as that's where a lot of the snow will be falling. And I want to show you the differences these models have. It's quite stunning. So just choose your location and find it. So there's our first system. There's our second one. You can see a lot of them do show quite some heavy snow. Some of them show something more of what the National Weather Service is leaning with, right? But some of them do show some pretty heavy snow. And then there's our big system. A lot of them show a ton of snow across Colorado and even further out into the plains in Nebraska, Kansas, right? Some of them are more conservative, like this one or that one, but mainly, like the vast majority show some pretty heavy snow accumulations across Colorado, and some of them show ridiculous amounts, like this one right here, or that one just a bit to the north. This one also shows some very heavy amounts, and some of them show snow, but just not as much. And you can see that's like an example right there, and a bit further to the south. And as we push this in time with these numerous storm systems, and each model at this point is kind of showing different things. Some develop a new system, some kind of show a secondary low pressure developing, and you can see, or secondary, probably if you were to count all of them from today, that would be like a 6 low pressure in the next 10 days. And look at that, dumping snow across Minnesota, North Dakota. Some you can see centered across Iowa, some center it further to the north. But you're under the gun for this snow, and some bring it pretty far to the south into Iowa, Illinois, and definitely some concerns with all this heavy snow. You could see in the next 15 days, some locations ending up close to that almost 30-inch mark across Iowa, Nebraska, depending on which model you look at. But again, this will get all zoned in, or kind of cone in, and we'll see some more agreement coming in. And you can see this is the that's a GFS version 16. And I could show you quickly what it thinks, this model, what it shows for the, sorry about that. I want to look at South in Texas because there's some models that did show some snow there. I want to show you the interest with that. And notice what we see here is some models do paint some snow across Oklahoma, Texas, obviously limiting it to the north, but, some models do bring some snow pretty far to the south. So that's definitely also interesting. And here's the older model run, which I was showing previously, and you can still see that it's been kind of a trend to keep some of these snow chances. Look at that one. It probably is rather unlikely, but pretty insane. Let's go back to maybe the Mid-Atlantic, so further east, right? And let's go to the newer model run. And notice that you can see some of them, look at that, the system, but across the east, not really the plains. So, it's not unheard of to see snow in March. It actually would be rare if we wouldn't see any snow in March, right? That's never happened before. So, yes, less centered across the east, more across the plains and Midwest, and really, the Midwest, but still, chances are there. And some of them are pretty big. All right. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.